Insanity is a particularly problematic defense in Texas. He's got a bunch of things stacked against him, including that he smoked pot and drank that morning. Do you feel that's relevant? You're laughing.
It's absolutely yes, it's absolutely relevant that here comes his defense attorney trying to say, my client's insane. However, he was smoking weed laced with other drugs and taking shots of whiskey before he voluntarily left with these men who he felt threatened by. It's a contradiction itself. If you get a DUI and you kill somebody while you're under the influence, you're still held accountable. So don't try to push the insanity on me when you have altered yourself and your state of mind. And if he's actually a victim of PTSD or has PTSD, he's probably on some form of medication that also says don't use use alcohol or drugs.
Right.
So to me, it's a complete contradiction.
Now, the defense attorney also brought up a text message exchange, which if you haven't heard about this, it was very interesting, between Chris Kyle and his friend Chad Littlefield. They were driving to the gun range with Eddie Ray Routh in the backseat behind him. There it is, Chris Kyle's text. This dude is straight up nuts. Littlefield responds, they're sitting next to each other. He's right beside me. Watch my six. Adam, does this help this guy's defense, or does the substances that we've been discussing adulterate even the fact that they knew he was out of his mind that morning?
Well, I think when you go through the process of joining the military and going through all that, which is in and of itself an act of either cowardice, ignorance, greed, or insanity in and of itself, you understand the idea of moral agency and taking responsibility for your actions. So it really doesn't matter. He did it. He knows he did it. Whether it was right or wrong, he's a threat to society, and that needs to be addressed.
Leanne, there was a lot packed into what he just said. I wonder if you want to respond to that.
Yeah, no, I think he's right. I think this guy knew exactly what he was doing. I think if we go back and look at his history, he's been a troubled man for a long time. I don't think the excuse of PTSD is even valid here. Sure, maybe he did have some PTSD. I don't even think when he was deployed, he was outside of the wire. So I know a lot of my friends who have seen combat up close and personal don't even like to call people that have PTSD that have been inside the wire. It could be because it kind of it maybe takes away from other people who really have it and who really need the help. And even one of my friends who was attached to Navy SEAL teams and who knew Chris Kyle said, look, if you look at who has PTSD, if you didn't attach a disability payment to it by the VA, only probably 2% of the people out there really have PTSD that need to get help. I think this guy was mentally ill long before he joined the Marines. Look at his history. Terrible, terrible history.
And I don't want to minimize the severity of mental illness. Adam, you packed a lot into that statement you just made. You said anybody who goes into the military, I think you said, has mental illness.
No, that joining the military itself is either an act of ignorance, cowardice, greed, or insanity.
Hold on, stop.
I don't agree with that
Jesse,
at all.
go ahead.
Oh, I don't agree.
Jesse.
Well, it's about moral responsibility here, and for people trying to say like that Routh is not responsible because he had PTSD or he was a combat veteran. You know, it's the same argument they use for the troops and the great atrocities that are committed abroad in the name of freedom. You know, but just following orders, or I had PTSD, or I was lied to by the government, those aren't excuses for killing children, for torturing people, for making enemies faster than we can kill them in these wars.
Jesse.
Okay, I find it very insulting that you've come to the conclusion on why I joined. There was one element you missed: pride and honor in my country. There was no cowardice, and yet there was no sense of it's pride.
Pride is an ignorant
determine
sin.
from the rest of us. The second thing is 7.7 million Americans have PTSD. This is not isolated to the military, and it is not insanity. It's an anxiety disorder. It's also associated with stress and overcompulsion. So there are many degrees of PTSD, and many people don't understand what PTSD actually is. 7.7 million Americans have it. And so let's get that off the table.
And PTSD also doesn't make you want to kill your brother in arms.
It can make you do something terrible and impulsive in a flashback, but people riding next to you in a car aren't going to say, hey, there's something weird about this guy. I'm scared. Watch my back. That's something else.